And thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I am glad you made it. Jon Stewart, you are a patriot, sir. Thank you for your continued hard work pressing the United States government to do the right thing. I really appreciate it. We all appreciate it, whether it's military or first responders. You have been there, boots on the ground at the Capitol, and we appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much for all that you do. I just came across another article with your name in it, Jon Stewart, and just again want to say thank you. I'm going to share this article with the folks, and I really do appreciate all that you're doing. So with that, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share it with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. The two asks are, look, hit the thumbs up, let the video run. Those two things tell YouTube to send it to more people. That's important. If you want to support the channel in other ways, consider being a member. Thank you to all you members. I truly appreciate your support. It means the world to me, and I really, really do appreciate every single one of you. I do my best to get back to you in the comments and acknowledge your comments. Thanks again. All right, so let's jump into this. The headline here on the AP News is Jon Stewart presses for a breakthrough to get the first 9/11 troops full care. That is a great cause. Let's move on. The first U.S. troops to deploy after the September 11th attacks are suffering from radiation exposure that the government has yet to officially recognize 23 years later. They are a final group of 9/11 service members that comedian Jon Stewart, a champion for the first responders, can't leave behind. Special operations forces were sent to a former Oh yeah, I know this one. This sent to a former Soviet base in Uzbekistan in early 2001, October 2001 actually, in early October 2001, where they launched the first missions against the Taliban in Afghanistan, including the secret horseback operation. Depicted in the movie 12 Strong. Over the next 4 years, more than 15,000 U.S. troops deployed to K2. Okay, now it was abandoned for a reason, and I hope they jump into it because it looks like they are. This is just, it's horrifying, is what it is. If you were not there in K2, you should absolutely support your brothers and sisters who were. Let's move on. Imagine this for a moment. Troops found clumps of yellow powder scattered near bunkers where Soviet troops had stored missiles. Testing showed it was radioactive uranium, according to a declassified November 2001 Defense Department assessment. In the years since, thousands of K2 veterans have reported cancers, kidney problems, and other medical conditions, some of which are known to be connected to radiation exposure. But exposure from K2 is not covered under a major veterans aid bill known as the PACT Act that the president signed into law in 2022. K2 veterans were the tip of the spear. They were the first group deployed in the war on terror, and they are still on a lazy Susan of bureaucratic nonsense, keeping them from getting the benefits and health care that they have earned, Stewart said in an interview this week with the Associated Press. Stewart is pressing the Biden administration for changes to get the K2 veterans fully covered, and he called into a meeting Monday between veterans and the Defense Department Assistant Secretary for Health Affairs. A 2001 Army Health Team site assessment found uranium littered around K2 in pellets, discrete pockets of yellow residue, and finally distributed throughout the soil. Testing to date implies that the uranium is not depleted uranium, but rather an enriched product, the now declassified report found. Despite those records, the Defense Department has not officially identified the base as a location where radiation exposure took place. Do it. And the Department of Veterans Affairs has not added it to the presumptive conditions troops experienced there. The White House has said it remains a priority for Biden, but has deferred to the agencies which say more information is needed. Really? More pressure. More pressure. We're in a voting time frame, right? So, election year, all that good stuff. Reach out to your congressional members too. Tell them that they need to get on the Department of Defense and let them know that they need to classify K2 as a toxic wasteland, right? Moving on. There's a quotation here. It says, President Biden believes veterans harmed by toxic exposures while they were stationed at K2 should have access to the benefits they earned and deserve. White House spokesperson Kelly Scully said in a statement to the AP. Okay, great. Well, I believe they should be covered. But I'm going to defer to the agencies to make that happen. How about put a little bit of pressure on the agencies to make that happen? All right, anyway. The Pentagon also said in a statement it remains committed to thoroughly reviewing all information related to K2 and that ensuring the health and safety of our service members and veterans remains a top priority. A spokesperson at the VA, Terrence Hayes, said in a statement that since the passage of the PACT Act, almost 12,000 K2 veterans have been approved for at least one service-related condition and have received on average a yearly payment of $30,871 to compensate them for their disabilities that they now have. So here's my thing. If you served in K2, try to get your hands on this declassified report that states that there was uranium there. Then, if you get that report or any other study or whatever you can find that shows that uranium was present, take that to your doctor and have your doctor write a nexus letter with rationale from that report, stating that it is more than likely that your whatever you have is contributed to your time in service, specifically at K2, and rationale provided by way of report such and such stating that uranium was there, right? And your own personal statements of, kicking the dust around, right? Or sleeping outside on the ground. So, moving on. But K2 veterans have also died waiting for the Pentagon and the VA to recognize their radiation-related illness claims. And further studies and reviews just prolong the process, said Matt Erpledine, who leads the K2 Veterans Group Stronghold Freedom Foundation. Thanks, Matt. We appreciate you. It needs to get done now, said Matt with Stronghold Freedom Foundation, who deployed to K2 as a C-130 pilot in December of 2001. Now, remember that what we're really talking about here is creating a presumptive list for those that served at K2. Okay? If you don't have a presumptive list, you can still file a claim. You just need to prove the nexus. And you can do that if you could find any evidence that shows that there was uranium found at that location. Then with your own personal stories and so forth, your letters, maybe a buddy statement saying, oh yeah, there was the yellow powder, all over. And, it would puff up and go in the as you rolled over or if you shoveled or whatever, right? Have that statement. Get a statement from a buddy. Find that report. Take all that to your doctor. Have your doctor write a nexus letter utilizing that as the rationale. Now you're proving your nexus and you don't necessarily need to have it be a presumptive. You have a good chance of getting it approved. And if the VA denies you, the board, on average, I'm just going to throw it out there, if you take your appeal to the board as an appeal, there's about a 30% chance that they get approved. The board approves around 30% of the ones that they receive. So anyway, let's move on. Based on a review of the declassified K2 data, try to find that, get it somewhere, I don't know, work with your congressional member, maybe the DOD has it, and you can ask your congressional member's office to get it for you, so you can file a claim with the VA, and since it's declassified, right? Radiation levels documented at K2 in 2001 were as much as 40,000 times what would have registered if the uranium was naturally occurring. That is huge, and again, rationale from your doctor on the Nexus letter. And this was actually stated from a nuclear fusion specialist and the president of the Institute for Energy and Environmental Research. Radiation exposure from uranium can cause kidney damage to kidneys, create a risk for bone cancer, and affect pregnancies, among other harmful effects. He said, who previously worked with veterans sickened by radiation at the atoll during the nuclear weapons tests in the 40s. Moving on, the VA does not have statistics on how many of the 15,000 plus troops deployed at K2 got sick. The Veterans Grassroots Organization has contacted about 5,000 of them, and more than 1,500 reported serious medical conditions, including cancers, kidney and bone problems, reproductive issues, and birth defects. U.S. forces left the base in 2005. Since then, Uzbekistan has taken on a greater role in the region, a greater role in regional counterterrorism efforts, particularly after the U.S. lost its foothold in Afghanistan after the 2021 withdrawal. All right. Just over a dozen U.S. troops have been regularly deployed to Uzbekistan over the last few years, according to the Pentagon. Let's see. Uzbek, I don't know what this means. Anyway, some official met with another General C.Q. Brown, chairman of the Joint Chief of Staffs at the Pentagon, on Monday to discuss shared efforts to defeat the Islamic State group and Uzbekistan's desire to develop a strategic partnership with the U.S. A readout about that is on Brown's official site. Moving on, K2 did not come up, according to the U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity. I think that's how I say it. It's me with words. To discuss at the private meeting. The veterans don't understand why the U.S. agencies will not officially acknowledge the radiation exposure, particularly because it's been reported in agency documents. They're clearly weirdly sensitive about this place, Stewart said. Good point. Congress obtained detailed information in environmental assessments of the base and reams of data from the Pentagon and made it public 4 years ago in a bipartisan effort to get the K2 veterans' toxic exposure recognized. Representative Lynch and Representative Green recently announced new legislation to that end. In response to multiple queries by the AP, officials at the White House, VA, and Department of Defense have pointed to other aspects of expanded care for K2 veterans, both from the PACT Act and supplemental care that the VA announced last month, adding more conditions that they face. When it comes to the radiation exposure, the government refers to a Johns Hopkins study on depleted uranium impacts on veterans that won't be complete until 2031. So when you hear the phrase, deny until they die, you try to go, that's not the case, right? But then you see stuff like this and you're like, really? So the 30th anniversary of the attacks is when that report from Johns Hopkins should come out. Because DOD and by extension the VA do not acknowledge it was there, it is a sticking point for every K2 bill or rule and was left out of the PACT Act because it was non-negotiable. K2 veteran Mark Jackson said. All right, so again, I'm going to throw it out there that if there is a report that you can get your hands on that says that there was uranium underneath your feet, on the surface, around you, in the dirt, at extremely high levels compared to naturally occurring, and what sort of impacts that could have. You can have that conversation with your doctor, and you could tell your doctor, hey, look, here's a report that shows it was 40,000 times greater than if it was naturally occurring, and here I am with these issues. Can you draw a correlation between that? The answer is yes, and now you have a great nexus letter, and you're just submitting your claim as a non-presumptive condition. So you are showing your time in service. I would prove that I was in that location. Show whatever you can that shows that you were there. If you happen to take any pictures that you kept for yourself, now's the time to bust those out. And get that letter from, nexus letter from your doctor, your diagnosis, a letter from yourself explaining it on a 4138. That's the form, 214138. You explaining the circumstances. You can get a buddy statement from other folks that you served with, stating that they've seen and experienced the same things that you did. Very important. I would feel pretty comfortable that if you had that report, the nexus letter and all that stuff, and you submitted it, and it was denied, if it was denied by the VA, that you would have a really good shot at getting that overturned at the board. So really, you should get it approved through the VA. So I think that it should get approved through the VA. If for some reason it doesn't, I think the board would do it for you. So K2 veterans, don't think that there's no hope, right? The fact that they declassified that report has now given you a gold mine to work with as far as filing your claim as just a standard claim and get your doctor to write the nexus letter. With that, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.